Welcome to Supposedly. I'm Rue.
I'm Jessi.
And we're going to tell you about some creepy, spooky, weird, true crimey stuff.
We should probably come up with a better intro at some point, but you know what? You guys are here and that's all that matters right now.
It's been 37 episodes, 38, something like that, and we haven't yet, so I think we're just going to stick with this.
Fair enough. Rue and I have just had some very enlightening conversations, and I'm so glad that you guys are now getting to join in the fun.
You didn't miss much. Jessi thinks her leg's falling off. We've been talking about dumb boys and flirting. And
Rue got a concussion.
So I don't technically have a concussion. I went to the doctor today, and it's not a concussion.
Well, tell us how that happened.
All right. So I got a dresser-type wardrobe thing to store all of my art supplies in. And I was going to put my sewing machine up on one of the high shelves because it doesn't work here with the power voltage differences. And so I was just going to put it out of sight, out of mind. And the shelf that I was intending to put it on was too short for the sewing machine. And so it kind of bounced off the shelf and into my noggin. And pretty immediately I knew something was not right. I never lost consciousness, but it hurt a lot. And that was a couple days ago. I got cleared by one of our medics, but it was still not feeling so great. So I called the nurse's advice line yesterday just to be like, maybe I should go in, because obviously with COVID, I'm not trying to A, take up resources, but B, expose myself and my family and whatever. But the nurse's line was like, oh, you're still dizzy? You should go and be seen within 8 hours. And I was like, oh no, I'm gonna die.
Yeah, maybe you should not smack your heads on things.
Yeah. And then I called our local clinic, and I was like, they said I need to be seen within 8 hours. And my local clinic was like, you ain't died yet, have you? And I was like, nope, that's kind of what I was thinking. And they're like, cool, we'll see you tomorrow morning. And so I went in today, and because I passed all the cognitive tests, the doctor said I didn't have a concussion, but I suffered a blow, which sounds way less cool, so I'm still calling it a concussion.
There she blows.
There she blows. It all comes back to pirates.
It always does.
And I have fluid behind my eardrum in my left ear. And that's why I'm still dizzy, and that's why loud sounds hurt.
So I will try not to be loud for you today.
Good luck.
I know. It's gonna happen. I get excited. I get loud. I'm
okay.
sorry to your brain in advance.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I have a light on in my little studio. I am sitting in total darkness right now with Jessi, just looking at vacant blackness.
I'm actually just talking to myself in the Zoom camera today. Yeah. And that's all right. I'll just talk to me.
Yep. So I am drugged up on Flonase and naproxen. So,
oof.
But I feel a lot better. Within 10 minutes of doing the nasal spray, I was like, wow, this is significantly better, because it's starting to take care of the fluid in my ear, which I know sounds super gross. But you know what? We're a true crime murder podcast, so you've heard grosser stuff.
Oh, and you're going to today from me, so this is your warning. If fluid in the ear turns you off, you might want to find another show today.
Stop listening, yeah. But no, so I don't have a concussion, but my noggin hurts a little bit.
Oh,
so
we want you to get better.
And just a forewarning, I know you're first tonight. A, our editing might suck, and B, my story might kind of suck, because as much as you struggled to be on NyQuil and do Heaven's Gate.
Do you remember that shift?
Yep. There was a moment where everything got a little slanty. I, for a while, was trying to do research with literally only one of my eyes open, and I was like, well, this is as good as it's gonna get. So hopefully my notes make any sense and don't totally suck.
Well, that's all right, because I got you. I did some in-depth, longer research. I know Rue usually has the bit of the longer story, but maybe I can help alleviate her head stress. So that's what's going on in Rue's world.
What's going on in your world?
Oh, well, I'm a little discouraged at the moment because this morning I got sent this audition piece, and it's straight up where the woman is a complete and 100% sex object, and then it's one of those I'm trying to fix you with my vagina things, and so I'm just having an existential day where I'm like, oh, what am I doing with my life? I'm trying to do things.
So in other words, it's just a normal Friday for both of us.
Yeah, and then I found out, when I was talking to Rue earlier, that a piece of my leg is just missing all of a sudden, which is really weird.
I'm convinced that Jessi has her first bit of cellulite, and I'm very proud of her for joining the ranks of us thick-thighed babes.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Either that or an alien got me in my sleep, but it hurts.
Well, the fact that it hurts makes me lean towards aliens, because my thick thighs never hurt randomly.
Okay, well, it hurts, and I sent you a picture where you can see the chunk that's missing all of a sudden.
When she says chunk missing, it's not like it's an open wound.
If it was your leg, you would think it was a chunk.
Okay, but when you said I have a chunk missing, I thought you were going to be like, here's my bloody, gaping gash.
No, like, it looks like there's a new scar or something. It's weird.
It
anyway,
does, yeah.
That's
so this is our podcast where we talk about all of our ailments. I almost said alien mints.
Well, mine could be an alien mint.
Yours could be an alien mint.
Yours is a sewing machine attack, so...
My little sister shat on me so hard for that. Like, she listens to this. Hi, Hannah.
Hi, Hannah.
But no, she literally, like, she's like, how are you? Let's talk. And I was like, okay, cool. And I'm, like, talking to her. I'm like, so I have a concussion. And she's like, oh, my God, how? And I was like, my sewing machine fought back. And she was like, ha, that's so dumb. You're so dumb. Are you okay? And I was like, yeah, that's fair.
That's a true sister bond, though. She's gonna rip on you first and then be like, but you're okay, like, right? But
I think she was like, if you're able to, like, talk to me, you're fine.
It's probably
Which means
okay.
I can just absolutely take a dump on you.
I've got some exciting news stories this week.
Oh.
Do you guys know that currently you can send your DNA to the moon?
Yes, I did, and that feels so cringy and colonizer-y, but I also kind of want to do it. Just because I love the moon.
You want to send your DNA to the moon? So for $99, you can order a DNA swab and collect your own DNA, and then it will be sent up on an expedition that NASA is conducting to the moon, where they will leave the DNA there. Do they just leave the swabs? Do they leave a record? I don't really know. I'm sure it says so in the article that I read that I'm not going to read to you right now, but go Google it.
Can we not leave garbage on the moon, please?
It's probably like a disc, or I don't know.
I know. We just have done such a not good job with our own planet. Can we not extend that out? We're so close to Wall-E and we don't even know it.
Look, what happens if you send your DNA to the moon? All right, just go with me on this one. I am missing a chunk of my leg, so I'm in conspiracy theorist mode at the moment.
I'm missing a chunk of my brain, so let's do it.
Perfect! This is a great combo. All right, so let's say you sent your DNA to the moon, and then, human population dies out or whatever, and eventually some sort of alien craft arrives on the moon and finds your DNA, and they clone, and then you're a clone. Well, you're not a clone, but they have a clone of you. What are they doing to that clone? Like, I don't know about just, like, willy-nilly sending my DNA everywhere. Says the person who did 23andMe, like, 2 weeks ago.
I still need to do mine.
You do? Didn't you send it in?
No, I haven't, just because the post office was so bonkers here.
So, my next news story. 2021 has returned to us 3 valid sightings of Nessie in Loch Ness.
I saw that and
Yes!
Did I send that to you?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought about it.
Nessie has been spotted 3 times on the live feed of Loch Ness, where you can kind of tune in and try to see if you can have any Nessie spottings or encounters yourself. And that's really exciting because we haven't had that many reported Nessie sightings for quite a while now.
I wonder if it's because, like, people are home bored and they're like, let's watch the Nessie cam for 4 hours when we'd usually go to a nightclub. And so there's just more people watching.
Look, I don't have better things to do you?
I have a concussion. I have literally nothing else to do other than throw sewing machines at myself.
You're not supposed to look at electronics right now.
She said it was fine. Okay. She said if it hurt, then I shouldn't. But it's fine.
All right. So should we just jump right into it? Or do you have anything else you want to let people know about?
I have nothing else to let people know about.
Oh, by the way, there's a baby here today, so if you guys hear disembodied child screams, that's just part of my life. Here on Supposedly.
It's been quiet in the cat department, so hopefully that'll stay.
Oh, there's 3 around me right now.
Lovely.
So Christy's kitties are actually going to go live with her son soon, and I'm going to miss them so much. I know, they're going to go on Monday. And I'm going to be very sad to let him go. Rocket's been kind of our unofficial 3rd podcast host recently.
Yeah.
He's my little buddy.
How's Little feeling about them leaving?
Well, I don't think she knows, because as much as I can tell her in English, she is a cat, so...
Well, no, but I mean, like,
that.
is she close with them? Like, does she enjoy having little kitty friends, or is she like, get out of my room?
Well, it is little, so it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
She's currently sleeping with Artie right now, and they're touching butts.
Aww. That's how me and Darnell sleep.
Touching butts?
Yep. Married life, baby.
Touching butts. Getting married, touching butts.
That was very Jake Peralta, Brooklyn Nine-Nine of you.
Thank you.
Getting married, touching butts. Getting married, touching butts.
There's a lot of things to look forward about marriage eventually, I think, and maybe touching butts is just one of those things.
On that lovely segue, what are you covering tonight, Jessi?
I'm gonna have a really hard time making a little verbal leap to my story from touching butts. That's for sure.
Well, you said ear fluid wasn't gonna be the grossest we got, so I'm a little nervous to see how you transition this.
I'm a little nervous to see how I transition this as well. So today, you know what? There's no transition. Today I'm going to tell you about Swift Runner.
Oh.
Yeah, it's, let's buckle up. This is quite a story, and we're going to jump into all sorts of different little things with this. I feel like I say this with all of my stories, because I just think very sporadically.
It's the ADD.
It's the ADD. I like to jump from thing to thing to thing. And I like to give you guys a head up that I'm having an ADD thing. Because when I get excited, I really want to cover a lot of facets. So I'm going to tell you guys about Swift Runner. And then we're just going to follow his story into what I'm also covering, which is going to be a surprise. Pew, pew, pew.
Oh, we got a twofer.
A twofer. So Swift Runner was an Indigenous man. And he was a pretty popular member of the Cree community. He was born in Alberta, and his given name was Kaki Si Kachun. He was the father of 6, as well as a husband. He was a tall, tall man. He stood at over 6 feet. That's 180 centimeters for people who aren't in the U.S. and actually use math that works.
Literally.
So he was just a giant of a man, right? And he made his living as a trapper and a guide for the Northwest Mounted Police. But over time, he developed a taste for whiskey. And this is where the story kind of begins to descend here.
Okay.
This is possibly because he lost his ability to hunt and provide for his family at the time, and that he kind of fell into these deep throes of alcoholism. But to make things worse, he wasn't a nice drunk. He was a very angry drunk, and his drinking habits really escalated and caused a lot of trouble in his life. First of all, he was fired from the police force, and then he was kicked out of his tribe because he had some very violent tendencies.
Yikes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, good on the tribe, I guess, for not tolerating that, but
yeah,
homie needed some support.
He needed some help. But we're talking about 1878.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was that far.
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, 1878 is kind of the year we're in right now. So this is before alcoholism was seen as a thing. You were just a drunk in the county jail, maybe.
Yeah.
A lot of these communities were just developing, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. So in the winter of 1878, Swift Runner gets kicked out of his tribe, and with him he takes his family, which consisted of his wife.
Oh, wow.
6 children, a lot of babies, his mother-in-law, and his brother. And he takes them out into the forest to kind of build a new home and start a new life away from the Cree peoples. So several months later, as spring starts rolling around, he kind of staggers out of the woods into a nearby Catholic mission. Now, this is a path where the story has so many different reported ways that it could go. So I'm going to tell you all 3, and you guys just pick whichever one's the best to you, because a lot of the story has been passed along from word of mouth. A lot of these files didn't survive, but we do get to where it all comes back together.
Gotcha.
So let me present you with option A. Swift Runner staggers out of the woods into a nearby Catholic mission, and the priests start asking what's wrong. He seems kind of off and is behaving a little bit erratically. Swift Runner claims that his entire family is dead. You see, during the winter, he hadn't been able to find any food, and slowly but surely, all of his relatives had starved to death.
Yikes. Except him, the guy who's over 6 foot and probably needs a lot of food to live?
Yeah. That's where the priests were a little bit suspicious, because Swift Runner, like you said, is pretty tall, pretty hardy guy, and at the time he looked pretty healthy. So if he's claiming that all of his family has succumbed to starvation, why is he in a man's world back then where the men were expected to provide, still have quite a bit of weight on?
Mm-hmm.
Plus, they know quite a few other Cree who had a really successful winter at the time hunting-wise.
Okay.
Of course, Swift Runner was no longer a part of his tribe. So the priests are a little suspicious, but they become completely and utterly disturbed when he starts having consistent nightmares. He would wake up in the middle of the night.
So, like, they took him into their mission, and they were like,
They take him into the mission, but they're on guard about this. He's behaving erratically. His story doesn't quite add up. He looks like he hasn't starved a day in his life. And now he starts experiencing these constant nightmares where he begins waking in the middle of the night screaming at the top of his lungs.
Oh.
But the last straw for these Catholic missionaries was when Swift Runner tries to lead a group of children into the woods. They're convinced something is not quite right, especially with his family, so they immediately go to the authorities. Here's our option B. Other claims state that upon his return to his tribe, without his family, his in-laws start becoming worried. There's just no way that their daughter and their grandchildren wouldn't make the trip to visit them. And once again, he's behaving erratically in this version. He's a little off, and you gotta remember, he's been kicked out of the tribe for having some violent tendencies.
Right.
So they decide to tell the Northwest Mounted Police to maybe check into it for him.
Mm-hmm.
And the Northwest Mounted Police at this time had been in the West for just 5 years. So they're a newly established police force.
Yeah. And these are also the people he used to work with, right?
Right.
Okay.
And the town is really just starting to up and come. It's Trapper Town. There's a lot of indigenous people. It's starting now to become settled. So the laws and regulations that we would have in place today didn't really exist and were just now starting to be formed around that time.
Right.
So option 3 in this story is that the police begin hearing rumors that something had taken place and this family had been killed, which then they decide to investigate. Some accounts also vary that he went to the police himself and claimed that something was wrong with his family. It's really hard to tell in all these stories what is 100% confirmed. But I can tell you what is confirmed is that Inspector Xavier Gatton was given the task of investigating Swift Runner's behavior. So the police put Swift Runner under arrest and they order him to lead them around his campsite. Once again, this is one of those things where a couple sources disagree on what exactly happened next. But either way, the group eventually stumbles upon the campsite where they find a completely horrific scene. You see, there were bones scattered everywhere.
Oh.
But what was more concerning than that was that some were broken and hollowed out. These weren't animal bones. And the fact that they were broken and hollowed out could really only mean one thing. Someone had snapped them open and sucked out the marrow from inside.
Sweet Jesus.
Yeah. But their suspicions get confirmed when they find a pot full of human fat.
Oh, okay.
So that's when Swift Runner starts pulling the Wendigo defense. See, according to Swift Runner, he's been possessed by an evil spirit, and that's when he had murdered and eaten his whole family. He claimed that at first he became haunted by terrible dreams, that a Wendigo spirit called on him to consume the people around him, and that the spirit crept through his mind, gradually taking control. So he began his transformation from human to Wendigo, and Swift Runner existed no longer. That's when the Wendigo killed Swift Runner's wife first. The police were able to locate her skull, which was reported to contain a small moccasin with sewing needle still attached.
Wow. Her skull?
Her skull.
Had a moccasin attached to it?
Had a moccasin inside of it.
Oh, okay.
With the sewing needle still attached. So it was something she had been working on and crafting. Or possibly that his mother had been working on and crafting.
Okay.
But as if that wasn't enough, the Wendigo forced one of Swift Runner's boys to kill and butcher his younger brother.
Oh, no.
And the spirit hung Swift Runner's infant by the neck from a lodge pole and tugged at the baby's dangling feet until he was suffocated and later consumed. It was later shown that he had also done away with Swift Runner's brother and his mother, although he acknowledged that she had been a bit tough to consume.
Okay.
As you might expect, the whole Wendigo defense doesn't really fly with these authorities at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a man who has a past of alcoholism, who's been kicked out of his tribe for being violent, and who has worked with some of these men himself.
Yeah.
So Swift Runner is sent to trial in 1879. And the jury didn't quite buy his tale either. After 20 minutes of deliberation, they sentenced him to death.
Wow.
He was eventually executed on December 20th, 1879, and in fact he was the first man to be legally hanged in Alberta, Canada. Before his death, he had converted to Catholicism, and moments before the trapdoor dropped, he gave a speech admitting his guilt. A
Hmm.
lot of these records don't survive, but some of the people had reported him saying just straight up, I did it. Now let's talk a little bit about his actual execution. Because this is the first execution in this area at that time, they didn't really have a process put in place for this, right? They construct the gallows for this, and the executioner arrived and had forgotten to bring straps to strap down his arms. The gallows didn't exactly have clear instructions, so it took a lot longer to put up than they had expected and anticipated. In fact, Swift Runner even offered to reportedly kill himself with a tomahawk if that would make things go faster.
Oh my god.
He offered. He did say a nice little thank you to the men who had imprisoned him, claiming that they had given him great hospitality and that he was regretful for what he had done, but he was no longer a human.
Wow.
So quite a few people come to watch, including one spectator who claimed it was the 29th hanging he had witnessed and was thoroughly impressed with the show. As he had later put it was the prettiest hanging I ever seen.
Okay. Sure.
But I bet you're wondering, what is a Wendigo?
I am wanting you to tell me all about it because I know a little bit about Wendigos and I love this story.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. So first, I want to tell you guys this quote by Basil Johnston, who was an Ojibwe teacher and scholar in Ontario, Canada. The Wendigo was gaunt to the point of emaciation, his desiccated skin pulled tautly over his bones. With its bones pushing out against its skin, its complexion looks the ash gray of death, and its eyes push back and deep into their sockets. The Wendigo looked like a gaunt skeleton recently disinterred from the grave. What lips it had were tattered and bloody. Its body was unclean, as if suffering from suppurations of the flesh, giving off a strange and eerie odor of decay and decomposition, of death and corruption.
Yikes.
Yikes. So the Wendigo is said to occupy the north woods of Minnesota, the forest of the Great Lake regions, the central regions of Canada, and is said to live as kind of a malevolent being, right?
Mm-hmm.
This creature may appear as a monster with some characteristics of a human, or as a spirit who's possessed a human and being kind of taken them over and caused them to become monstrous. It's historically associated with cannibalism, murder, insatiable greed, and the cultural taboos against such behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
Wendigos are known by several names: the Wendigo, the Wittigo, the Wittico, and the Wheatigo. Each of them roughly translate to the evil spirit that devours mankind.
Oh, casual.
Yeah, just, like you do.
Yeah.
It's long been known amidst many indigenous tribes, including the Eastern Cree, the West Main, the Swampy Cree, the Nakapsi, the Innu peoples, who describe them as giants many times larger than human beings. And descriptions can really vary about this creature, but what's common to all of these cultures is the view that the Wendigo is malevolent. It's cannibalistic, and it's a supernatural being that is strongly associated with winter, the north, coldness, famine, and starvation. So according to legends, a Wendigo is created whenever a human resorts to cannibalism to survive. In the past, this occurred way more often than we'd like to admit or even think, because indigenous people and settlers often found themselves stranded in these bitter snows and ices in the north woods. Sometimes they'd be cut off from food supplies for days, and any survivors of the cold may have even felt compelled to cannibalize the dead in order to survive. So other versions of this legend cite that humans who display extreme greed, gluttony, or excess also might be possessed by a Wendigo. So there are a couple ways that the Wendigo could possess you. Many times it would come about through dreams and kind of take you over and cause you to become a cannibal. So they're also said to be cursed to wander the land, eternally seeking to fulfill their vicious appetite for human flesh, and if there's nothing left to eat, it will starve to death. So basically, a Wendigo could kind of come about in two different ways here. It can enter your dreams and slowly take you over, causing you to become a cannibal and eat those around you. Usually this would take place after you've already consumed human flesh. In the other version, he kind of already exists. And it's created when there's someone who's very greedy and wishes to seek out more than their fill, and it also kind of ties back to cannibalism.
So that means that, like, even if Swift Runner was possessed by a cannibal, he probably did, or was possessed by a Wendigo, he probably already did some cannibalism, like, even as him, so he definitely still deserved to be tried for cannibalism and murder.
Yeah, let me get to that a little bit, because that's kind of where I'm going. You got it. So, years before Swift Runner had murdered and eaten his family, he had been stranded out in the wilderness, where unfortunately some members of his party didn't survive, and they were forced to eat the dead.
Okay, gotcha.
So, it's believed that began his transformation to the Wendigo.
Interesting.
What's really interesting about this legend is that it kind of developed a really interesting medical term called Wendigo psychosis, which is considered by some psychiatrists to be a syndrome that creates intense craving for human flesh and a fear of becoming a cannibal.
Oh.
This psychosis is said to occur within people living around the Great Lakes of Canada and the United States. Which, think about that. That's kind of interesting that there's a particular form of psychosis that only affects those people. And we have this great legend of the Wendigo being that takes over your dreams and causes you to become a cannibal.
Yeah.
So Wendigo psychosis usually develops in the winter in individuals who are isolated by heavy snow for long periods of time. And the symptoms are varying. They can go from poor appetite to nausea and even include vomiting. Subsequently, the individual starts developing a delusion of being transformed into a Wendigo monster, much like Swift Runner. People who have Wendigo psychosis increasingly see others around them as being edible, and at the same time they have an exaggerated fear of becoming cannibals themselves. In fact, the most common response when a person is shows signs of Wendigo psychosis was a curing attempt by traditional native healers. In a lot of cases in the past, these attempts have failed, and the possessed person began either to threaten those around them or act violently or antisocially.
Yikes.
And unfortunately, these people were often executed. There have been reports regarding this psychosis dating back hundreds and hundreds of years.
That's interesting, because, I think in modern medicine, we would be so quick to be like, you're having, paranoid schizophrenic delusions, or this is something related to mental health. But that's always something that I'm so curious when we get these kinds of cryptids, where it's like, could it be something more legit? Is it invalidating to these notions to be like, oh, it's just mental health? Or is it invalidating to mental health to be like, oh, you're a cryptid monster? It's such a weird balance.
That's kind of what I wanted to leave you guys thinking about here.
Oh, sorry. I keep jumping ahead. I'm pulling a Jessi.
That's fine. No, I'm glad you're starting this conversation because that's what I want you guys to think about here. Yes, we do have it as a term of psychosis that does strictly affect those who, unfortunately are stuck out in the cold in winter. But we're also talking about indigenous peoples that have this long tradition of talking about this spirit that inhabits you and transforms you into a cannibal. And so you're right. Where do we make that differentiation? Is it a mental health thing? Are we disregarding the spoken word and the legends and lore of these indigenous people? Or were they really onto something before we even knew about mental health? I think it all really goes together. But Swift Runner wasn't the only person to suffer from Wendigo psychosis. In fact, there were several other reports of similar situations. And that, my friends, is the story of the Wendigo and Swift Runner.
I really liked that one. That was really good.
I wanted to keep it short and concise. I could get more into the psychosis, and I could really get into some of these other tales, but I think Swift Runners was the best one that I found that could line up with the lore and is the most historically documented that I was able to locate. So
it's heartbreaking no matter what happened that his whole family was affected.
Absolutely. And we're talking about a time, once again, where there's a lot of expectations put on you as a male to provide for your family, to hold a job, to bring food. And, alcoholism wasn't diagnosed back then. You were drunk, and that's that. So, I think it's sad that this ever happened, but I also think it's enlightening when you think about the mental health versus this lore.
Yeah.
I think they definitely go hand in hand.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, we look at the Catholic Church and how basically way back when anybody could get an exorcism, and that was often violent, and you were kind of tortured until the demon, quote unquote, left you. And it's like now we would understand that those people needed help. They needed treatment. They needed medication, maybe. They needed therapies, not to be beaten until the devil left.
Well, and then you look at stories of changelings in Celtic societies where, if a baby was appearing sickly all of a sudden, or if someone was experiencing seizures, they were said to be taken over by the Fae or be changelings. So, I think that we have this long-standing history of mental health before we knew really what was happening in mental health situations, and how do people explain that?
But it is hard. As being people who believe in a lot of this stuff, it's like we've talked about the darker side of the paranormal, and it's like, okay, if demons exist, why couldn't demonic possession exist? But then it's like, how do you draw the line between possession versus having paranoid schizophrenia or having a, depressive episode. And it's so hard to not invalidate either side of that.
Oh, absolutely. And there have been a lot of reported sightings of Wendigos. A lot of times they're seen to be these gigantic creatures that have the skull almost of a deer, with the antlers of a deer and such. And it's believed in Cree culture that individuals that experienced this phenomenon, such as Swift Runner, would then be forced to walk the earth forever as a Wendigo, searching out human flesh until they perished.
Wow. That's sad. Ugh, that one always creeps me out.
Yeah, I find it really interesting that his last words were, "I'm no longer human."
Yeah.
And the lore is that now he's forever forced to walk the earth as a Wendigo.
And is that his spirit? Because I know that, is it that the creature or the...
Is it the spirit or the
right,
body?
because, would that be why he was like, yo, I'll just off myself right now if it means I don't have to be a Wendigo forever? Volunteering to kill himself? Or is it that now his soul is kind of damned to be a Wendigo?
See, I had a hard time finding the distinction, but I believe it's the soul.
Damn, that sucks.
I believe it's the soul. And when it came to him offering to take himself out with the tomahawk, that was mostly just because everything was going really slow and he didn't really want to be an inconvenience.
Oh, man. Yikes. That was really good. The Wendigo always freaks me out, man. I've heard different iterations of the story. I've never heard Swift Runner's story before, but yikes. The deer head is so spooky ooky to me.
Oh, yeah. And there have been reported sightings. I've even heard of sightings on Skinwalker Ranch, although I was having trouble trying to validate those encounters online. But I wanted to approach it from a mental health standpoint and really talk about, where some of our lore comes from as a society. And, Indigenous people and peoples of all types from all around the world have lore that dates back to mental health and where do we draw that line? So...
yeah. Have you read anything by Stephen Graham Jones?
I have not.
He has a book that I read last year called The Only Good Indians, and he's an Indigenous author, and he writes horror. And this book was so I was scared, dude. And it kind of had some Wendigo vibes. It's like a pissed off spirit that returns a couple decades later and takes its revenge. But if you're into the Wendigo, Jessi, I definitely think you should read that book and talk to me all about it, because I want to talk to someone else who's read it and freak out over it.
You send me the name of that title and I'll take care
I'll buy
of
it for you.
I've got more books to send you. I always send Rue the books that I've finished that I think she'll like. I ship them to Germany and wait for her to read them.
Yes.
We have our own little supposedly book club.
I love it.
Rue, what are you going to tell me about today?
I am going to tell you about a paranormal forest.
Can't wait to hear about a paranormal forest.
All right, let's hope my eyes work.
And by the way, every forest is a paranormal forest if you do enough spirit boarding in there.
Well, I suppose that's true. All right, so we are headed to the Transylvanian region of northwestern Romania.
Ooh, I like Romania.
Hoia Baciu Forest, which has been called the Bermuda Triangle of Romania.
Interesting. There's a lot of... I like how the Bermuda Triangle is the name.
It's the OG.
Have you noticed in all these areas, it's always it's the Bermuda Triangle of Wisconsin. Yeah. It's the Bermuda Triangle of...
I think the Bermuda Triangle has just branded itself so effectively.
It's got some good marketing behind it, is what I'm saying.
The Bermuda Triangle is the Uber of the paranormal. You know how everyone's it's the Uber of whatever.
Yeah, except instead of getting a ride and getting delivered, you might just disappear forever.
I mean,
totally cool.
That still happens in Ubers. Always check your license plate, guys, so you don't get Bermuda'd.
Yeah, there's a lot of... Maybe we shouldn't say Uber. Maybe we should just say, ride shares.
Quote, ride share services.
It happens with all ride shares. Check all the licenses always.
Yeah. I used to be an Uber driver. It was a lot of fun.
You did?
Yeah.
I would never do that.
I had so much fun. It was when Darnell was away for training, and I was just bored and trying to save up some money before we moved. And I started Uber driving, and I would do, the late-night weekend circuits, because I wasn't going out.
Oh, man.
And it was a blast. I liked it.
Really?
Because, I liked knowing... I don't know. It was some kind of weird, girl power vigilante thing, because a lot of those, people who were not getting into the right vehicles, stories were coming out, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I know I'll get these people home safe. I just want to take care of people.
But did you ever worry that someone would get into your vehicle that meant to cause you harm, or that could possibly be drunk and unruly to the point that they would try to, try
Not
something?
really, because I think
No?
that that's a thing everywhere.
Okay.
And I was like, I mean, the service has your name. They know that you're supposed to be with me. So if something bad happens, I feel like it's easier to track down than if I'm just like out walking in my neighborhood and I get yeeted.
Yeah, but that doesn't deter the bad things
No.
from happening. I don't know. That's why I would never personally Uber because
Yeah.
of Uber drive because of that. But
I'm such a believer that like if a bad thing's going to happen, it's going to happen, and I try and keep myself as safe as possible, but I don't not do things because of that. I was like, I'm a single woman who lives downtown in a major city. Like if I'm going to get something bad happen to me, it's probably going to be at my own home, not, driving. But it was a lot of fun. I had a Disney playlist.
Okay.
And that was one of my tactics to get people to not puke, was I would play Disney music and we would all sing along and they would forget just how drunk they were. And it was, I started doing it for myself because I was like, if I'm going to drive Uber, I'm going to get some enjoyment out of this. And I would watch the biggest, burliest frat boys. I would pick them up from like the sports bar downtown Kansas City and they'd be like, bro, is this fucking Mulan? And I'd be like, yeah, it is. And then I would have 3 probably 250 plus pound guys in my backseat.
Let's get down to business.
And they would be hanging out my windows singing to people at stoplight. It was so much fun. I had people Snapchatting me. They'd be like, I'm in the coolest Uber ever. It was a lot of fun. So
that's awesome. Well, I'm glad you had fun with your ride share.
Loved it. I would do it again. But
and I'm glad you're safe.
So back to Hoia Baciu Forest, which
is
the
Bermuda Triangle of Romania, if you will.
So the forest is 729 acres, and for people
that's a big forest
who don't know what that means, it's just over a mile.
Oh, so it's not a big forest.
It's not that big of a forest.
I heard that and was like, big forest, yeah. Don't know math, big forest.
I don't know acreage.
Small forest.
Yeah, small forest, decent forest.
Not bad forest.
Nope.
Run, forest, run.
Stop, forest, stop. And so it is dense woods, and it's a popular area for locals and tourists. The area is considered a hot spot for paranormal activity, ranging from ghosts to UFO sightings.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah.
I like when we've got multiples.
Yeah, there is a little bit of everything in this one. So let's talk about the history of the forest a little bit. So this forest has been documented as existing for at least 55,000 years, but maybe longer.
And someone somewhere wants to cut it down.
Probably, yeah. So in the northeastern portion of the forest, there are actually remains of what have been considered the oldest Neolithic settlements in Romania, dating back to 6500 BCE.
Ooh, I love a good Neolithic society.
I do too. The area was colonized by the Roman Empire, but was eventually abandoned in what appears to have been a migration period.
Okay.
The city to the east of the forest has an incredibly long and sordid history as well. In the 10th century, the area became a part of Hungary after the conquest of Transylvania. Mm-hmm. The area would change hands and names several times until it became known as Cluj after World War I, when it became a part of the Kingdom of Romania. In 1940, it went back to Hungary, and in 1944, the city was occupied by German forces, and like in so many places in Europe, the Jewish population suffered greatly.
Right.
So there's a lot of trauma and war that's happened in this area that I feel like could be charging some of the activity.
I think that's definitely fair. Plus, look at how many different societies kind of
I mean, all the way back to Rome. Like,
right.
They've seen some shit.
Yeah, Rome kind of stuck its foot everywhere, though.
Yeah, Rome was... We don't even need to talk about
Rome was
all the
like
bad things they did.
The pre-America. Quite literally, we had actually taken a lot of their symbology and all that.
We want to be the empire as well. So in 1974, the city's name was changed one last time to Cluj-Napoca, which is what it's known as today.
Okay.
The city is now considered a destination for historical value as well as modern comfort. So there's still a lot of the architecture from hundreds of years ago, but it's also kind of a fun spot. It was funny in one of the articles I read, they were like, there was great food here and a taste of gentrification.
Oh,
I was like, same.
Oh, okay. Well,
same, my friend.
At least it's an honest review.
Yeah. Throughout the area's long history and changing of hands, it seems that the one constant is the superstitions that seem to linger around the forest. So pretty much every group that has lived here has been like, maybe we don't fucks with the forest.
The forest seems a little off. Maybe we don't go there. You guys heard about the Bermuda Triangle? Well, we have a forest to show you.
So the first thing about the forest that just doesn't feel quite right is that the trees don't grow straight.
What?
Think about every forest you've ever been in. The trees grow reaching up towards the sun, right?
I am thinking about the single forest I have ever been in, and yes, the trees did grow facing the sun.
There you go. Not in Hoia Baciu. In this forest, the trees swoop and grow in curves that make it seem like they're reaching out to touch you.
Ooh, kind of like the trees from Wizard of Oz.
Yes, I have heard that comparison a lot in watching videos about this.
Well, you're welcome for my unoriginality.
No, but a lot of people are like, it's like the Wizard of Oz. They're so freaky. So you're right on base. Weirder still is that certain trees actually twist while growing, making their trunks look like corkscrews.
Kind of cool, actually.
And all of them twist clockwise. Scientists haven't been able to figure out the cause for this.
That's weird.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure there's a reason, but also, like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Are they all the same kind of trees, or are they different species of trees?
I think they may be different ones.
Don't like that.
Yeah, not a fan. There is a portion of the forest called the dead zone, and in this area, nothing grows. You can see, like, this vacant space in the middle of the forest from Google Earth, and, like, with drones. Like, it's substantially naked.
Do we know why it's a naked forest?
We have no idea. Scientists have sampled the soil, but they haven't found anything indicative of why it would inhibit growth of vegetation. The soil samples pretty much match the areas where stuff grows.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in.
The dead zone is also where a lot of reports of paranormal encounters and UFO sightings occur.
Well, you gotta have a place to land.
It's the landing pad for the UFOs. People have also reported that their phones and GPS devices stop working within the dead zone, and there are thoughts that the reason for these malfunctions could be electromagnetic field irregularities.
It always comes back to electromagnetics.
Always.
Always.
I always go back to Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad when he's like, "Magnets, Mr. White! Magnets, bitch!"
Magnets! I was on Breaking Bad. I never got to meet him. I hung out with Walter White a lot, though. Bryan Cranston, really cool guy. Super nice. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
He seems like a dope dude.
He is.
Yeah.
He's baller. Super sweet.
I thought you were gonna say he's bald, and I was like, well, for a while he was. There are also reports of black fog rolling out from the forest, but it isn't clear what's up with that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep.
Black fog.
Yeah, which is kind of, you think fog should
eerie.
be like misty and
Like gray. Yeah.
So there are also beliefs that this forest could be an interdimensional portal, and that it's also the stage for a lot of time slips.
I love time slips. Are my favorite.
I know.
I want to hear about the portal.
Like straight up, people have compared it to like Stranger Things. Like it's the gateway to the Upside Down, and I'm like, oh no, thanks.
Okay. All right.
Unfortunately, many people have died or disappeared in the forest, and in fact, the forest gets its name because of a shepherd with the same name who went missing while trying to herd his flock of 200 sheep through it. A search began, but neither the shepherd nor his flock were ever seen again.
The sheep were gone too?
Yes.
Like no traces of the sheep, like no sheep
Right.
bones, so it's not like wolves got them.
Like they said, never seen again.
Is it still a mile-long forest at this time, or was it much bigger?
I'm not sure how big it was.
Okay, well, all right.
But-
Cool fact, nonetheless.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so one of the freakiest stories is of a little girl who is said to have been about 5 years old when she wandered into the forest and disappeared. Her family assembled a search party to look for her, but she was never found. Until 5 years later, when she wandered into town wearing the same clothes as when she disappeared that didn't look like they'd been messed up or anything. She couldn't recall where she'd been in that time or that she'd been missing. And in some versions of the legend, she hadn't aged at all.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So, somewhere some aliens are hanging out with a shepherd and some sheep, and they are just having a lit night.
Right. So that one's kind of freaky to me. That's like one of the most convincing time slip stories from the region for me.
Breaking Bad. Even the cat didn't like that one.
You deserve to be shamed.
Even the cat looked at me like, Jessi.
Can we not?
Can we elevate today? And the answer is no, cat. No.
So people have reported that they've experienced feeling anxious or paranoid while being in the forest, and oftentimes they've expressed feelings of being watched. People have also reported nausea, even vomiting, rashes, and headaches when coming out of the forest. And there are even stories of people being bitten, burned, and pushed by something unseen while inside the forest.
Burned is interesting.
Burned is interesting. Bitten is also interesting.
When we're talking about bitten, are we talking about like a bug bite, or are we talking
No,
like
I feel
a,
like we're talking like teeth.
Okay.
Yeah. And like, I mean, a lot of these are just forest stuff. Like you could get, poison ivy, you could get dehydrated and get a headache. But like, I feel like if you get bitten by something in a forest and you don't see what bit you and it's like teeth, we've got a problem.
Yeah, that's probably not okay.
Yeah.
Are we talking like lizard size, like bite, or I know lizards generally don't have teeth.
I'm not sure if we're having a Jurassic Park moment or not. No.
I'm just saying, like, what size of mouth are we talking?
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, fine.
Okay. So the first officially reported UFO sighting in the area was on August 18th, 1968, when military technician Emil Barnia was out in the forest with his girlfriend and some of their friends. His girlfriend, who is of course unnamed, because why would she matter, was actually the first person to spot the UFO. But it's his story. It's fine.
Yeah. Why would her name matter?
Right, why would her name matter? But she was like, hey, I see something weird. But Emil was the one who stepped into the dead zone and was able to take 4 photos of what looks like a UFO. Investigators looked into the photos, comparing the story against what weather balloons or whatever could have been in the area that day, but found nothing that matched. They also reviewed his negatives and found no evidence of tampering. After the photo was released, more and more accounts started to flood in. But something worth noting with his story is the significance of reporting something like this. At the time in Romania, it was illegal to even believe in the paranormal.
Wait, stop. It's illegal to believe in the paranormal?
Yeah.
How would they know if you believed in the paranormal?
I think if you were talking about it, apparently they were like hecka communist.
Yeah, you and I'd be super doomed.
Moving on. So, yeah, it was illegal to believe in the paranormal, and by going public with these photos, it was seen as going as far as to sabotage the government. And so remember, he's a military technician.
Oh, so that's...
Did I not say that?
Right. You did not. Or if you did, my brain didn't catch that part.
So he was a military technician, which is part of why his photos were taken so seriously to begin with, but why it was also even more sacrilege for him to come forward and report this.
Right.
And he ended up actually losing his job and was given no unemployment or severance.
That doesn't necessarily surprise me.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yes.
But his photo is still taken as really seriously and as pretty concrete evidence for some weird shit. It is definitely a UFO in the sense that it means an unidentified flying object.
Well, that is what UFO means. So.
I know, but so often we conflate it and be like, UFO equal alien.
Okay, I get you. Yeah.
Like, it is truly a unidentified object. It's not necessarily little green dudes, but it's something weird. Even before Barnia's report, the biologist Alexandru Sift began researching the woods, seeking answers for the light electromagnetic anomalies he'd heard about. According to Sift, he'd gathered a significant amount of evidence to back up his claims. Unfortunately, he died in 1993, and mysteriously after his death, almost all of his photographs went missing and have never been recovered.
Well, that's just frickin' convenient, isn't it?
Right. But his buddy, Adrian Patrut, a professor of chemistry, pieced together what he could with the remaining photos and released a book which essentially translates to phenomena in the Hoia Baciu Forest. He continued to investigate the forest and took photos of floating discs and colorful balls of light, some that were visible to the naked eye, and then some that he noticed only after developing the film. He also studied radioactivity and magnetic anomalies throughout the forest and discovered that in addition to those, microwaves, infrared readings, electromagnetic field readings were all significantly higher than what would have been normal in the area.
I want to investigate this spot so much right now.
It's only like a 12-hour drive from me. I want to go so bad.
Oh, you should.
I know. So the balls of lights that he saw could be detected with the thermal camera, but when he stood beside them, they didn't feel hot despite getting a thermal read.
Interesting.
So like the thermal camera would light up that it was hot.
Right.
But he would be standing right beside it and it would feel like cool in the area.
So interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Which is weird because you think that like there's scientific proof of like, hey, this thing is hot, or it wouldn't be picked up by a thermal camera.
Yeah.
But then to your own touch, you're like, it's not as hot as it should be.
Weird.
Also, photos that were taken wouldn't develop in the order they were taken.
Okay, that's a little... Okay,
If you took like 1, 2, 3, 4, it would develop as like 3, 1, 4, 2.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of weird. And his belief is that the anomalies within the forest are not paranormal, but that they are of nature and just haven't been discovered yet.
So is this kind of where the time slip theory starts to creep on in a little bit?
Yeah, because I think like our understanding of the paranormal is just outside of our understanding scientifically.
Oh, absolutely. And right now is such a great time to be a paranormal investigator. And because look at the rush of technology we've had, even within the last 10, 20, 30 years. I mean,
even in the last 5.
Right.
I mean, our phones are incredible now.
Let's look at the birth of the internet and how much that changed our connectivity as a society. And I mean, just the rate at which technology is expanding right now is so exciting. It's a great time to be alive or to be dead because... My goodness.
Or to be dead.
Well, you know, if you're going to communicate from beyond the grave, we have the technology.
It's a great time to be a ghost.
You don't have to just like go through a medium anymore and spew your ectoplasm. You
can just like tweet, "Hey, I'm a ghost. What up?"
Can do some EVPs, you know?
Yeah. So in the dead zone that I mentioned, people have also seen and taken pictures of shadow people hovering in the clearing.
Interesting.
I'm not a fan. I want to do shadow people at some point because they freak me out.
I am a deep believer that a lot of shadow beings are tied to depression and suicidal thoughts.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like dementors.
Yeah, they're like, Bermuda Triangle of Romania dementors.
There you go. And also in this area of the dead zone, it's believed that people did a lot of rituals, which were attempts to open that portal to get to another dimension. That's where this interdimensional, like where the little girl might have gone for 5 years. People have reported that they've passed out in one part of the forest and woken up somewhere entirely different, with hours having passed and no recollection of what happened.
Question: have there been Sasquatch sightings?
None that I saw.
Interesting.
The most prevalent belief is that the ghostly sightings from the area belong to peasants who have lived in the area throughout history. It's believed that they were tortured and are enraged that they're stuck in the area.
Fair.
Yeah. I mean...
How many times have we talked about people that are stuck at work forever or stuck...
Yeah.
Ugh.
Well, and it's like if you were treated poorly and like Rome came and smashed your land, or like we're talking some World War II occupation, like there's probably a lot of pissed off people in this area who have died in not so great ways.
Do you know what the humidity level is in this area?
I do not.
Okay.
I don't know the size of the mouths. I don't know the humidity. I'm a failure. Listen, I had a concussion. So, these ghosts are said to make themselves known through the sounds of women giggling, girls screaming, the sounds of hooves even when no animals are present, and people have seen orbs both in pictures and with the naked eye. Sometimes people will see nothing, take a picture, and then will later see a face in the picture. Supposedly, people have also seen faces peering through the trees with their naked eyes as well. And sometimes the trees will like seem like they're almost forming like faces, which I know is a thing that we do. We look for faces, but it is kind of freaky since the trees don't grow straight, that they're already weird. And then now they also seem like they have faces in them, which is freaky. There are also other reports of people seeing glowing green eyes staring out at them.
Okay.
And when people report seeing these eyes, there's usually a scream heard or that black fog that we've talked about. So it seems more convincing than just like animal eye shine, that it's like we're seeing this, we're hearing something with it, and there's also a fog emitting around the area. People have also reported lights moving through the trees in the darkness, and these lights have been all sorts of different colors. And this is somewhere where people are like, could it be a paranormal manifestation? Could it be a UFO thing? It's unclear what these lights are. Oh, okay, so I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
Okay.
But this forest was featured in the 2013 Ghost Adventures 2-hour-long Transylvania extravaganza.
Wow.
And I need to watch it because I want to watch Zach get scared of a forest.
That sounds amazing.
But in addition to Ghost Adventures, there's some great YouTube videos from people who like even spent the night camping in the forest. Amy's Crypt did a great one that was a lot of fun.
Ooh, okay.
Jessi, I have in my hands the written word of what life will be like for you when you end up in hell inevitably for all of our sins that we've committed.
Did you just low-key doom me to hell?
No, I mean, we're both going.
Hey, I do not claim that. Thank you very much. You make your own travel arrangements, miss.
By biblical definitions, neither of us are going to heaven.
I think you know what? You do your thing.
Okay.
Don't just low-key doom me to hell in an episode of Supposedly.
Okay.
Please.
But if you were to go to hell, I know what it would be like.
Okay,
Hypothetically, if you went to hell, where I'm definitely going.
Stop that! I don't think you're going to hell.
Okay, I think it sounds more fun.
Rude.
I spend too much time on TikTok, it's fine. So, there is an annual night run through the Hoia Baciu Forest, and that is what I think your idea of hell would be. And it's available in a 5, 10, and 21K option.
Any of those are my...
See, you wouldn't let me get to it, but I'm like, I know that this is a circle of hell for Jessi, is going on a forest run in the dark.
Look.
Probably getting scratched and bitten by a salamander that's actually an alien ghost.
An alien ghost salamander? All right.
Yep.
All right. Look, I like that it's a paranormal forest. That'd be really interesting to me. The running? No, thank you.
The forest? Also kind of no thank you. Will Forest for ghost. That's the Jessi slogan. Will Forest for UFO.
Yeah. Someone was asking me a couple days ago, like, how do you feel like you'd be in a survival situation? And I immediately flashed back to where I'm like, I'm taking myself out with a rock early.
Yeah, once the Snickers bars are gone, it's over.
It's over for me. Give me a rock, let's do this. I think it really just depends on when you're in that moment, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. As much as we joke about taking ourselves out with rocks when the Snickers bars run out, I think we could do it.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
we'd have our bras off, so we're already at an advantage.
Like, I think the human will takes over.
Yeah.
Like, even if you want to give up, I think there's just that element of stubbornness that all humans kind of inherently have. Anyways, so from the Night Run's website... They said, you'll see many curious lights, maybe some UFOs or small green guys. You will be constantly watched, but not only by us. If you're brave enough to venture into this race, be prepared for many physical harm, including rashes, nausea, vomiting, migraines, burns, scratches, anxiety, and all other unusual sensations.
Yeah, because that sounds just fun.
Usually, all ultra-marathoners are facing these symptoms in their long and exhausting races.
Yeah, never sign me up for any sort of running event.
And I think that's the worst marketing. It's like, you're gonna get messed up, let's go!
Romania goes hardcore though, man.
They do. But yeah, I like that that's how they advertise on their own website to get you to do this run. It's like, you're gonna get broken, let's go.
No, don't sign me up to run anywhere ever.
But last year they had to do the race remotely.
How do you do a remote... What?
I think it was just people running in the forest overnight at random, and that sounds like such a bad plan.
That sounds like the worst plan.
Please practice for safety, folks.
I think we just found our next horror film, though.
The Romanian Night Run.
Romanian Night Run.
But yeah, so that is the story of Hoia Baciu Forest.
I just immediately flashed to Michael Scott eating all the chicken Alfredo before their run.
I gotta carb up. And Andy's nipples start bleeding.
Yeah. That's what
I love that episode. God, can you imagine Michael Scott in the Haunted Forest?
I want to see that so bad now.
I want to see that so bad.
Doing the fun run.
Back to the Dementors, the shadow people Dementors of the Bermuda Triangle of Romania. What was the worst part about prison?
It's the Dementors. The Dementors.
Prison Mike is so good. Yeah, so there you go. That's Haunted Forest time.
I really loved Haunted Forest time.
Thanks. I did my best given my condition. If I could go to Romania, I would for sure go check it out. Like, I hope things open up before we have to leave Germany, because there are so many places here I want to go, supposedly related and not. Like, there's so many things that I've talked about on the show that I'm like, I hope I get to see this before I have to leave. And then I could have dinner with a side of gentrification.
Please don't get concussed in the forest.
Or scratched or bitten by a salamander.
We don't know how big the mouth is, Rook, but, don't end up on an episode of I Survived. Or, do. I'd prefer you survive, but like, don't strand yourself in a forest or disappear in the same dress and be found 5 years later.
Ideally, yeah. Ideally. Although, she hadn't aged, so that's cool.
Can I just, go now?
To the forest?
Yeah, just disappear for 5 years and come on back and we'll see where we're at.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
What outfit would you wear? I feel like you'd really have to put some care into your outfit if you're going to have to come back 5 years later and have it still be kind of fashionable.
No, see, I'm thinking I'm going to have to wear it for 5 years straight, and I'm going exactly in what I'm in right now, which is my leggings, my comfy socks, and my Finding Nemo hoodie.
Look, you guys can't see us, but every week we do this podcast, we are in pajamas with our hair in, the messiest crap buns.
Yeah, mine's in a low, gentle braid right now because even having my hair up hurts.
Oh, baby. Oh.
I'm so messed up.
Oh, you need to go to bed.
Yeah, probably.
We need to end this so you can rest. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us on Supposedly. You can find us at supposedlypod@gmail.com if you have any stories or anything that you'd like for us to cover. Or you could email us at supposedlypod.com.
You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at supposedlypod.
And thank you guys for joining. We're going to let Rue go get some rest now, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Supposedly.